Good morning. Today's shir actually is sponsored by Leah and Alan Cohn in memory of the yortzeit of Leah's father, Menashe Simcha ben Naftali Herzke Leah. His neshama should have an aliyah. Thank you, Leah and Alan, for sponsoring today. And we're picking up in the story where we had left off. As you recall, in the previous Perek Yudalid, we had read of the passing of Rechavam. Rechavam was, as you see on the chart, very simply the son of Shlomo. He had reigned for 17 years. He's located on the chart right here. And after his reign, his son, Aviyah, who is also known as Aviyam, is going to be taking over. But there's an interesting problem that we encounter immediately at the opening of the Perek, with the words, Uvishnat Shmona Esrei Lemelech Yeravam ben Nevat, in the 18th year of Yeravam's reign, Malach Aviyam al Yehuda. Aviyam ruled over Yehuda. Now, the reason why this is a problem is back in Perek Yudalid and Pasuk Chaf Aleph, we wrote, if you remember, Urechav'am ben Shlomo Malach Yehuda ben Arba'im v'achat shana, Rechavam ben Malcho u'shva esrei shana Malach b'Yerushalayim. That Rechavam had taken over. He was 41 years, when he was able to reign, when he began his reign, and he reigned for 17 years in Yerushalayim, the city Asher Bachar Hashem L'sum et Shmo Sham Mikol Shivtei Yisrael V'Shem Mimona Amah Hamonit. And he reigned in Yerushalayim for 17 years. And in fact, if you just look at the chart which I provided for you, this chart remains faithful to that statement in Perek Yudalid. It says very simply, the Rechavam ruled for 17 years, and yet the opening of Perek Tetvav starts out by saying that it was in the 18th year of his reign that his son, Aviyam, took over. So the question is, how is it possible? How do you have 17 and then it becomes the 18th year? Rashi has a very simple response, and Rashi says, actually, it was the 18th year since Rechavam had begun his reign. However, there was a break of a year when his son had not yet taken over, and so this is the equivalent of the 18th year. It was a year after Rechavam died. The Radak disagrees, and the Radak says, no, you need to remember the way we count the rule of kings. The rule of kings, Jewish kings, are always counted by Rosh Chodesh Nisan. And so Rechavam ruled for 17 complete years, explains the Radak. However, it was 17 plus. There was into the 18th year. It just wasn't a full year. Since it wasn't a full year, we don't count it in Perek Yudalid. We only were counting his complete years. However, in this case, it was in the 18th year of his reign. It was immediately after his father's death that Aviyam takes over. Now, again, in terms of the next king's name, in Divrei Hayamim, we refer to him as Aviyah. Here we refer to him as Aviyam. It's the same person. It's not unusual to have a royal name, and it's not unusual to have a more common name. We find that even very frequently in Nevi'im, Yirmiyahu and Yirmiyah. We add the association with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, with the Yud and the Hey, or the Yud and the Hey and the Vav, when it comes to the question of creating a more formal, regal name associated with kings. And so just continuing in terms of the text itself, Shalosh Shanim Malach B'Yerushalayim, he ruled for 3 years, V'Shem Imo Ma'acha Bat Avshalom. And his mother's name was Ma'acha, the daughter of Avshalom. Now, this is actually, according to the Ralbag, she was the daughter of the Avshalom. According to Josephus, she was the granddaughter of Avshalom. But nevertheless, once you hear that his mother was from the Avshalom line, you immediately begin to understand what's going to happen, because it's not going to be so good. The role of the royal mother was a very important role. We'll see that a little bit more as we move forward. But this is a significant role itself. And so as a result, Vayelech b'chol chataot aviv, he continued in all of the sins of his father, asher asa lefanav, which he had committed before him. V'lo haya levavo shalem im Hashem Elokav, and his heart wasn't complete with Hashem. Kilevav David Aviv, just like David. David again continues to be the paradigm of what it means to be a faithful servant of God. Ki lema'an David Natan Hashem Elokav lo nir b'Yerushalayim. It was because of David that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave the nir in Yerushalayim. The nir is the melucha. It is the idea of the monarchy. Well, a source we find for this, for example, is in Tehillim. In Tehillim we say, Sham matzmiach keren leDavid arachti nir lemishichi. I'm sorry. I've created a melucha dynasty for my anointed one. Lahakim et beno acharav ulamid et Yerushalayim. That Yerushalayim was given, and this monarchy was given, so that there should be continuation from one generation to the next. He didn't do what he needed to do, however, and as a result, Asher asa David et hayashar b'nei Hashem. David always did what was right. V'lo sar mikol asher tzivau kol yemei chayav rak b'dvar Uriah Chiti. The only sin which we associate with David, and again, this goes back over and over and over again, we keep on going back to the sin with Uriah and with Bathsheba. Notice the Mitzvot David says it doesn't mention Bathsheba here. And the reason, according to Mitzvot David, it doesn't mention Bathsheba, but it only mentions her husband, who was basically put to death by being placed on the front lines. The reason, according to Mitzvot, is because ultimately with Bathsheba, and the letter of the law, he didn't violate. The spirit of the law, he definitively violated. But David HaMelech, if you remember, whenever someone went off to war, they would give their wives a provisional get, and so therefore it wasn't the issue of Eshet Ish necessarily. We had that big machloket back there in that story. But according to the Mitzvot, the reason we just point out Uriah, because Uriah was what really was wrong in all of this. Umilchamaita, yeah, Yafa.
Yeah, I'm sorry to disturb again, but what exactly would you describe as the violation of law with Uriah? And if there was, why wasn't it addressed by a Sanhedrin or someone?
Well, so the violation we're going to see in a moment, actually in Divrei Hayamim. There's a long description of what goes on with Uriah, and Uriah is an interesting person. But the basic piece is he continues in the same sins, if you recall, of what his father had done. And what his father had done, we noticed that his father had committed, allowed for Avodah Zarah to be created in Eretz Yisrael, and he allowed for these continued violations of the religious spirit within Eretz Yisrael itself.
But my question was really about the Uriah Chiti piece in terms of David, because I understand that the text is going to continue with the sons of Aviyah, but the question is, why talk about Uriah Chiti, and what is that supposed to mean to us, the reader?
So one of the answers that you'll find very often in I find this more in modern commentators, is that the fact that within Tanakh, we don't gloss over the sins of the great people is actually a strength of our own Tanakh. Then normally when you have books that celebrate greatness and celebrate history, you skip the parts of the flaws of a person's of a person's own personal history. The fact that we let it all out and we show it up front actually strengthens that these are who these people are. This goes back also even to the extent, and this you'll find some of these discussions in the last decade or two when we talk about Tanakh Ba'arba Einayim. If you recall, there's and I talked about it before, there's this push and pull, or maybe even we can call it a dialectic, between two different approaches to looking at Tanakh. One approach, which many people want to assume nowadays, is that all of the Avot, the Etanim, were like Malachim. And we can't imagine whatsoever the greatness of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. They're beyond our comprehension, and similarly David HaMelech. And so we put them on a pedestal very, very high. The challenge with putting them on that pedestal is if they are Malachim, then they really can't serve as role models for us, because we aren't. At least I'm not. Maybe people in the call are. But we can't have them as those kind of role models. On the other hand, there is another approach which talks about, and this is a modern approach in Tanakh in Israel, and you'll see this even on the Tanakh 929 website and other places, where it's called Tanakh Ba'arba Einayim. Arba Einayim is a slang phrase that I'm looking eye to eye with a person, 2 eyes to 2 eyes, which are 4 eyes. The problem with Arba Einayim is I bring them down so low that they're me, that there's really no difference between the average person and these great people. And when you do that, you diminish the greatness and you make our conversations with them something, for example, that we saw in the non-Orthodox world. If you recall, 20, 30 years ago, there was a series on PBS called Genesis. It was based on a book that was written by a professor from JTS. His father actually used to be the rabbi at the Mikdash El Hagro, which used to exist, the shul, which is now the JRC on Dodge. And his was a thesis that the story of Breshit, for example, is the story of dysfunctional families. Because if you look, if you just look at it and you assume these are regular people, yeah, there's a lot of dysfunction. There are brothers who hate each other, want to kill each other. There are parents who don't talk to each other, all sorts of things. So what you end up with is these 2 extremes, and those 2 extremes are both destructive. We try to find, Nechama Leibovich, one of the times, if not more than one of the times when I was privileged to be in Rosh Hashanah, we talk about the fact that we want to talk about our Chazal as if they are on a pedestal, but one that I can reach. They're greater, but they're not beyond my reach. We find that middle ground between the 2. Well, David HaMelech, the sin with Uriah and with Bathsheba, as horrific as it was, also at the very same time teaches us of the power of tshuva. That people make mistakes, and they can make tragic mistakes, horrific mistakes, that cost people's lives. And with tshuva, they can reemerge with greatness. And so to mention David, and to just hide the fact that he had this episode, is to diminish David. To focus just on the episode is to diminish David. To have the 2 within balance creates this greatness of David. So I hope that responds to that question.
Thank you. Thank you.
Continue. There was this war that was ongoing between the north and the south all the times. ויתר דברי אביam וכל אשר עשה הלא הם כתובים על ספר דברי הימים למלכי יהודה ומלחמה איתם בין אביam ובין ירבעם. And we repeat once again that there was this continual war by Yishkav Aviam im avotav v'yikru oto be'er David v'imloch asa b'no tachtav. So his entire monarchy was just for 3 years. During that monarchy, we know very little about him. This is, a real telescoped version of his history. We know he ruled for 3 years. We know his mother was probably a descendant of Avshalom. We know that he did not do what David would do, but he followed rather in the evil ways of Rechavam. And we know he had a war. Now that war, interestingly, is emphasized twice. It talks about, in just these few psukim about him, we talk about the war twice. So the Abarbanel actually says the reason we mention this war between him and Rechavam is for the very simple, and the war, that he had between him and Yeravam, okay, the war between Rechavam and Yeravam, even with an Asa's statement, is because Rechavam, his father, was not the one who even led the war in his monarchy. Actually, he had handed it off to his son to be in charge. This son, Aviam, was in charge of that war. And the reason that was the case is Rechavam was raised at a time in his father's home, in Shlomo HaMelech's home, where there was great affluence, there was peace, and the Barbanel describes him as being a person who was Rach HaLevav. He was not a person of great courage, Rechavam. And his son had to take that role, which is why it's mentioned twice. On the one hand, he fought the battle on behalf of his father, and he continued the battle on behalf of himself. And those are the two mentions. Now, if you look, however, in Divrei Hayomim, you find a very different kind of story. Now remember, Divrei Hayomim and Melachim are telling the same stories, but from two totally different perspectives. Divrei Hayomim tells the story always to make sure we understand the legitimacy of Malchut Beit David. That is the purpose that's underlying everything. That the Davidic dynasty is a legitimate dynasty. It is the dynasty that will prevail. Melachim is a book that is written by a Navi. And by being written by a Navi means it's there to teach us Musar. It's there to teach us what's right and what's wrong. And so certain things aren't necessarily included within one book versus the other. There will be those differences. And so the fact that something is mentioned one place and not the other is just because one is remaining true to its mission and the other is remaining true to the other mission. But I'm just going to pull up for a moment the text from Divrei Hayomim Bet and to share the story with you. And I don't know where I put it, but hold on one moment. It is here. I had it. There it is. Okay. The text is from Divrei Hayomim Bet, Perek Yud Gimel. I am using a great resource. I'm sure most of you are familiar with it, Sefaria, which is an extraordinary database of texts, both Tanakh, Halachic, Musar, all sorts of things that are coming together. It's a massive text, a massive database that's free and online. And it tells the following story. Same beginning. We notice the difference between one way we mention his name and another. Here we call him Aviyah, which we had talked about. And it was the 18th year again. In other words, either the year after the death of Yeravam, or it was actually we didn't count the complete year. Shalosh Shanim Malach B'Yerushalayim v'Shem Imo Michiyahu ben Bat Uriel ben Minagivahu Milchamaita ben Aviyahu ben Yeravam. Notice in this case, Ma'acha versus here is the name Michayahu. Okay, interesting. We'll deal with it at the moment, but of course this would seem to support the idea that Ma'acha bat Avshalom was the grandmother and not the mother. V'yasor Aviyata milchama b'chayil gibori milchama 400,000 ish bachur. Aviyah amasses an army of 400,000 men. V'yiravam arachimo milchama b'800,000 ish bachur gibor chayil. And the northern kingdom, Yeravam, had 800,000 men. Vayakum Aviyah me'al lahar tzamarim asher bahar Ephraim, and they went. Okay, and Aviyah went up to Har HaTzamarim, which was up in Ephraim. In other words, he traveled into the north. Vayomer Shema'uni Ravam L'Kol Yisrael, and he called out to Ravam and the Jewish people. Halo lachem ladat ki Hashem Elokei Yisrael natan mamlacha leDavid al Yisrael leolam lo levanav brit melach. Know that there is an eternal covenant between God and the Davidic dynasty. In other words, Yeravam, you are an illegitimate king. Vayakum Yeravam ben Nevat Eved Shlomo ben David ve'imrod al Adonav. You have rebelled, Yeravam, against your masters. Vayikavtzu alav anashim rekim b'nei Belial v'yitamtzu al Rechavam ben Shlomo Rechavam ayanar v'rach levav v'lo yitchazek lifneihem. And they ganged up with all of this riffraff, the scoundrels. Okay, and they tried, and they pushed against Rechavam, and Rechavam, as we had mentioned before, was Rach Levav. He was a person who just was English, faint-hearted. He wasn't courageous, and he wasn't able to stand up. Ve'ata atem omrim litchazek lifnei mamlechet Hashem b'yad b'nei David. Okay, now you want to go ahead and go to war against us? Ve'atem hamon rav v'imachem eglei zahav asher asa lachem Yeravam le'elokim. Elohim, and you now want to go ahead and rise up against us. You have so many people, 800,000 versus 400,000. You have these gods. Halo hidachtem et kohanei Hashem et bnei Aaron v'alevim v'tasu lechem kohanim kamei ha'aratzot kol habal malei yado v'far v'bakar v'elim shiva v'ayal kohen l'lo Elohim. Okay, and you go ahead, and didn't you throw out all of the kohanim from the land? Okay, you pointed your own people. Anyone who wanted to, all of a sudden, was able to be a Kohen. We, however, we, the southern kingdom, have never forsaken God. V'kohanim mishartim l'Hashem b'nei Aaron v'alevim b'melachet. And we we continue. And we have kohanim who are legitimate kohanim. Umaktirim l'Hashem olot baboker v'erev, and we offer the korban tamid all the time. Uktoret samim u'marechet lechem al hashulchan. We have the Beit Mikdash, and we have the showbreads. Hatahor menorah hazahav and erotel v'erev, and we have the menorah. Ki shomrim anachnu nishmeret Hashem Elokeinu v'atem azavtem oto. We are keeping the guard over what is the true religion, and you've left it. B'nei imanu berosh Elokim b'choana b'chatzotzrot v'hatruah lahari alechem b'nei Yisrael al telachamu im Hashem Elokei avotechem ki lo tatzlichu. Says at this point, Aviyah, don't fight us because you're fighting God. You're not going to win. V'Yeravam hesevit hamarav. In the meantime, while Aviyah's having this whole spiel, Yeravam goes ahead and he puts together an ambush. Lavo machreim, he sets a whole set of troops behind to encircle the southern kingdom. Vayulifnei Yehuda v'amarev machreim, they were in front and back. Vayifnu Yehuda, and all of a sudden Yehuda turns around. V'hinei lahem milchama panim v'achor, they see front and back. They have a war. V'yitzakula Hashem v'kohanim machzerim b'chatzotzrot, and all of a sudden they call out to God and they're blowing the trumpets. V'yariu ish Yehuda v'hi v'haria ish Yehuda v'elokim nagaf et Yeravam v'chol Yisrael lifnei Aviyah v'Yehuda. And when they blow the shofar, when they raise the trumpets, then all of a sudden HaKadosh Baruch Hu steps in, and he begins to bring about the downfall of Yeravam. They begin to run away, the northern kingdom. God gives them in the hands of the southern kingdom. And the southern kingdom smites them tremendously. 500,000 men were killed in this battle from the north. And at that time, the northern kingdom was crushed, while the southern kingdom were triumphed because they believed in Hashem. And they captured cities. The southern kingdom captured cities in the north. Yeravam didn't have any strength anymore in the time of Aviyah, and as a result, he died. Etc. And Aviyah became strong. And the rest is written all in the works of Edo. Now, this episode, which is really contained in our Navi, in just a couple of sentences where it says there was this battle that was ongoing between the two, presents a very, very different picture of this person. Because if you think about it, here he goes ahead, and he's crying out to the north, you've betrayed God. God steps in, and we're saying that Aviyah, or Aviyam in our Perek, is a bad guy. So how do you work this out? In one case we say he was bad, and in the other case he was good. How did this work out in such a way? And how can you figure it out? So interestingly, there is a Gemara in Yerushalmi. It's in Yevamot Perek Tet Zayin. It's Halacha Gimel. You remember the Yerushalmi doesn't have the same kind of fixed formatting like the Bavli. The Bavli, we always refer to a page. There are two different formats for the Yerushalmi. One where you nowadays can refer to a page, and one where you just refer to which Mishnah it's contained in. Mishnah in a Yerushalmi is called a Halacha. And so it is in Perek Tet Zayin, Mishnah Gimel, in that piece of the Yerushalmi there's a discussion that actually, when we talk about the death of Aviyah in Divrei Yamim, it's not, I'm sorry, the death of Yeravam in Divrei Yamim, we actually are talking about the death of Aviyah. That Aviyah actually sinned in that battle as well. That despite the fact that God came to the salvation of the southern kingdom as the legitimate dynasty, Aviyah sinned in one of three possible ways. Reb Yochanan says that he went ahead, his sin was he shamed Yeravam in public. Now, if you think about it, as bad as Yeravam was a legitimate king. Achia Shiloni had placed him in power through the prophecy of God. That he did such a thing and just called him a rebel is not true. He was a rebel in one sense, but on the other sense, he was a rebel with permission from God. The second thing is, by doing so, and this is Reish Lakish's position, he shamed Achya Shiloni, the Navi. He's saying that everything this Navi did was meaningless. The third thing that he did is that even though he may have succeeded, following these battles, it didn't make a difference. He captured northern cities, and he didn't get rid of any of the Avodah Zarah. All of the things that he claimed were terrible that Yeravam did, he didn't make a difference about. And because of that, that's why his monarchy ended after 3 years. So what you find is a fascinating thing about Aviam. Aviam, on the one hand, is a legitimate ruler. He is directly a descendant of the Davidic dynasty. The fact that there's only 3 years of rule tells you something up front, that something's unusual. And that something unusual was that even though he was victorious against the North, those victories were hollow victories because they were based on, again, violating what we would consider core values of Torah. Whether he is diminishing an appointed king, whether he's diminishing a Navi, or whether he is just not doing anything to repair damage that occurred in the North. So there is this interesting balance. Yeah, Yafa.
Yeah, didn't we learn a while back that the Navi said, don't fight with each other? And this is Me'ez Hashem. Hashem designated that Yeravam should be the king of the north, and we're going to have a separation. So by what right was there a civil war between the north and the south?
Right. So,
and then why did Hashem let him win if he was off course?
Right. So if you remember, we dealt with it briefly last week, that there were continuing battles. Okay, in Yudalit Pasuk Lamed, it said, that there were battles between Rechavam and Yeravam. And the reason why these battles occurred, we had talked about last week, because while it was true that originally, when Yeravam went up to the north, Rechavam massed an army and he wanted to attack him, to bring him back, that at that moment, he was told not to do it. But after that moment, those battles continued between north and south. So it wasn't that there was an eternal prohibition. We see it very clearly, even in the lifetime of his father, of Aviam's father, Rechavam, that he was attacking the north. Shoshi?
So can we go back to the Shemimo Macha Bas Avishalom?
Yeah.
So what's that about?
Well, the Macha ben Avshalom tells us something about this person, okay, that apparently, and we'll see it actually in the next pasuk, and pasuk Yud, we're going to see it as well. The fact that this woman, let's call her for a moment the Queen Mother, had a very powerful influence. The women in court had those influences. If you think about it, even with Shlomo HaMelech, his wives had sufficient influence that he didn't get involved in what they were doing, which was wrong. It wasn't that it was it's true there was a king and not a queen at that time, but nevertheless, the queens, and at this point already we see the queen mothers, had very significant role, and by associating it, whether it's according to the position of the Ralbag, or it's according to the position of Josephus, whether it was the daughter or the granddaughter, nevertheless, of Avshalom, we see also right now when you get that smell of Avshalom involved, you know there's a problem that's going to be coming up. We move over now. Uvishrat esrim li'Rav Melech Yisrael, Malach Asa Melech Yehuda. Now you have the next king. Now, when we have the next king, Asa, so again, just to go back to that chart we had a moment at the beginning of the tour.
I would take it, I think you skipped some sukkim.
Oh, I did? Vayishkav Aviyam im avotav yikbru to be'er David v'imloch Asa.
Yet Pasuk Zayin.
Zayin also, I'm sorry, I apologize. Oh, v'yeter divrei Aviyam v'chol asher asa Elohim ketuvim al sefer divrei yamim lemalchei Yehuda. That there were these other chronicles that existed, and this is the Navi's way of saying, listen, I'm not getting into all the details. There are things that were done but I'm not going to get into it. Divrei Yomim, our chronicles, does pick up some of it, but this isn't the Divrei Yomim l'Melchei Yehuda. Umilchama ita ben Aviyam uben Yeravam, and this was the second time, if you recall, where we introduced these battles between the south and the north, which was the jumping point I had to reading the section from Divrei Yomim to talk about one of those key battles. Vayishkav Aviyam imavutav, and Aviyam died. He was buried with his fathers. V'yiberu oto be'ir David, v'yimloch Asa v'no tachtav, and Asa ruled after him. Uvishnat esrim liYeravam melech Yehuda, and in the 20th year of Yeravam, the king of Yisrael, Malach Asa melech Yehuda. So we're right now here. Okay, we're at Asa. Now, if you notice right now, just from the simple chart, and obviously we're going to talk about it a little bit more, you notice that Asa ruled a lot longer. Okay, he had a 41-year reign, which is from 867 to 908. Now, he is the son, so we are now David, Shlomo, Rechavam, Aviyah, Asa, the fifth of the kings in Davidic dynasty. The Arba'im v'achat shana malach b'Yerushalayim. 41 years he ruled. V'shem imo Ma'acha bat Avishalom, I'm sorry. And his mother's name is Ma'acha, the daughter of Avishalom. The same thing it was, I've been mispronouncing it. It's Avishalom each time. But again, mother's name is Ma'acha bat Avishalom, which is a little weird. Because his father's mother's name was Ma'acha bat Avishalom. And now his name is Ma'acha bat Avishalom. So the most difficult answer to this is actually found in a tshuva of Reb Avram ben Arambam, of the Rambam's son. And it's a tshuva that he wrote. And in his tshuva, he says very simply, it's the different woman. It's just a different woman. And a different woman with exactly the same name. And that's it. Complicated to say so. That's in Siman Mem Aleph in his Chuvos, but he says it. However, the Ralbag says, no, that really what it means was she retained the role of Queen Mother. She raised him, okay, she may have been very much involved in his education, and she had that role. The Radak says, it maybe wasn't. It doesn't mean imo. Remember, aim can also mean grandmother, just like we find in other places, Av is grandfather. And so she was, the simplest explanation here is the same queen mother stayed in power. Vayas Asa hayashar b'nei Hashem keDavid aviv. But Asa went very differently. Asa did the right things. Vaya'aver hakedeshim min haaretz v'yasar et hagilulim asher asu avotav. And he removed the kedeshim. The kedeshim was a form of idolatry that was based on prostitution. He also removed all of the idols within the land, which his forefathers had done. V'gam et ma'acha imo v'yisireha migvira. And he also removed Ma'acha from her role as the queen mother. Asher asata mifletzet la'ashera. She had made some kind of idol for the Asherah god. Now, a mifletzet, interestingly, is like a monster. Okay, for those of you who remember from many years ago, it's still there. There was a famous park in Kiryat HaYovel, which had this slide called the Mifletzet. Okay, it looked like a monster. It was white, black and white. I'm sure you for those who've been to Yerushalayim, you've seen it. Right. Nowadays, there's a lot of other things you see besides the Mifletzet, but once upon a time, that was like a major sight to see. But she made some kind of, in addition to just worshiping an idol, she really made a big idol. And it was something very good that she did, not good, very bad that she had done. And he got rid of it. Vayichrot asat miflatztam, vayisrov benachal kidron. And he went ahead, he destroyed it, he burned it, absolutely destruction, in Nachal Kidron, the Kidron Valley. You know where that is. It's at the bottom of Ir David. All the way, when you go all the way down to the bottom, that's Nachal Kidron. V'habamot lo saru. But interestingly, he didn't remove the personal altars that people had. Rak levav asay hashalem im Hashem kol yamav. But Asa's heart was complete with God all of his life. So the question is, wait a second, so why didn't he get rid of the Bamot? And there are a number of different possibilities. One of them is, if you remember, Bamot was something that at one point was permitted and then was forbidden. And so it wasn't automatically a Bamaz Avodah Zarah. He got rid of all of idolatry, but he didn't get rid of these personal Bamot. And it may have been a calculation that he had, and some suggest this calculation, that the reason he got rid of them was simply because he wanted to make sure that the people would not go for another direction. In other words, if a person can't make it to the Beit HaMikdash, and in those days the primary form of service was not tefillah, but was action in the Beit HaMikdash, if someone couldn't make it to the Beit HaMikdash, that all of a sudden they wouldn't start doing something else that was totally illegitimate. A Bama was wrong, but it wasn't Avodah Zarah. And so it could be that he left them there. He wasn't going to be the only king who hasn't removed the Bamot. It is a mistake. It isn't defended, but on the other hand, it seems to be glossed over. Immediately after we say about the Bama, we immediately say his heart was complete with God. So it's not brought as a strong or a harsh criticism, but it is there. Vayaveh et kodshei aviv ve'et kodshei Beit Hashem kesef v'zahav v'chelim. And he brought all of the sanctified articles of his father and sanctified articles of the Beit HaMikdash, which were both silver and gold and the utensils. So what's going on? It could be very, very simply that after, in Aviya's time, or even in his grandfather's time, that there may have been articles which were sanctified but had not ever been brought to the Beit HaMikdash, like that. However, the Dat Mikra suggests that, if you recall, with the battle with Shishak from Paro, from Egypt, who had taken, really, he had plundered the entire city. We dealt with this last week in the Perek. Maybe there were things that were placed in hiding. And those things that were placed in hiding had been hidden away, and now he took the opportunity to bring them back. Just as a total side note and completely off the subject, when we first came into KINS 25 years ago, we used to open up cabinets and we would find silver, the silver crowns and rimonim and all sorts of things for the Sifrei Torah. Why? Because at KINS, if you notice, all the mantelach of all the Sifrei Torah are the same. And the Gabbai at the time, Mr. Aberman, wanted all of those, everything to be the same. And so when someone would donate a keter, they put it on a Sefer Torah, and after a certain amount of time, it would disappear. Because he didn't want one Sefer Torah to look better or different than another Sefer Torah, and he put it in a cabinet. And then someone would donate something else, he'd leave it out for a little bit until they weren't looking, and then he'd put it in another cabinet. Sometimes people put things away. Here, according to the Dat Mikra, it was for a very different reason. He put them away to save them. Umilchamaita ben Asa uvein Vasa Melech Yisrael Kol Yimem. Now we haven't gotten to Basa yet, but we will in a minute. There continued to be this call, this battle between the north and the south, all of the years. Interestingly, there was, we do read in Divrei Hayamim that there wasn't, for 35 years, there wasn't a battle that was going on. 35 years it was quiet. And only we'll see in the 36th year that it wasn't. And it could be there's 35 years from the beginning of the division of the countries. But nevertheless, the Malbim points out whether it was an open war or it was this tension, like a war of attrition, that was going on throughout. Vayal ba'asa melech Yisrael al Yehuda. Now, Ba'asa comes up and he does attack Yehuda. Ba'asa is Nadav's son. And we'll get to him in a little bit. He comes and he attacks Yehuda. Vayiven et Ramah, and he builds Ramah. Now, Ramah is a city that was an ancient city. It's not far from Ramallah. It's actually between Ramot, which is named for Ramah, and Ramallah, which is named for Ramah. It's somewhere along that road there, apparently. And what he did was, when he built Ramah, he still did it, Levilti Tate Yotzei Veva La'asa Melech Yudah. to stop any traffic coming back and forth. In other words, he created a blockade in the city. Why would he build a blockade? Well, the Mitzvot David says he built this blockade, this massive fortress, in order to attack the southern kingdom. The Dat Mikra, after he talks about the Ramallah, also introduces possibilities of this being a major southern point. But what's very interesting is if you look again in Divrei Hayomim, Perek Tetvav, Pasuk Tet, and I'll bring it up on the screen again just to show you what's happening here. In Divrei Hayomim, we have an interesting comment. Okay, and just to go over to Perek Tetvav, Perek Tetvav, Pasuk Tet. Well, let me go back to Chet. V'chishmoa asa dvarim ha'ele v'anvuah oded hanavi yitchazek v'yaver hashikutzim mikol eretz Yehuda v'Binyamin. Asa got rid of all of the Avodah Zarah it's referring to. Min harim asher lachad mehar Ephraim v'yechadesh mizbach Hashem asher lifnei ulam Hashem. After he heard what Oded had to say, he really did everything right. Vayikbotz et kol Yehuda v'Binyamin v'agarim imahem. And what he did was he brought all of Yehuda and Binyamin together, and the people who were living there. And who were they? Me'Ephraim u'Mimnashe u'Mishimon ki naflu alav miYisrael l'rov berotam ki Hashem Elokav imo. People had been coming from the north down to live in the south because they saw that Hashem was with Asa. So there's a suggestion that's made by Alex Israel in his new commentary that maybe what was going on here was when Basa built the city of Ramah, what he was trying to do was build a secure border. He was building a wall. And the wall was to stop people going from the north to the south because he saw they were doing this in this time of Asa. There was enough people down there in the south that already got him nervous. And so that was the reason he's building up Ramah. Vayikach Asa et kol hakesef v'hazahav hanotarim be'otzrot beit Hashem ve'et otzrot beit hamelech vayidnem biyad avadav. So what does Asa do in response? Which again, in response, if you're just building a wall and you're not attacking, why do you have to have a response? But if you're attacking, as the Mitzvot says, then there needs to be some kind of response. He gathers all the gold and all the silver, and he gives it to his servants. Vayish lachem hamelech Asa ben Hadad ben Tavrimon ben Chezyon melech Aram hayoshev b'Damasek. And he sends it over to Damascus. And he sends this tribute up to Damascus to Ben Hadad, who was the king there in Damascus. Now, why will he send it up? Because we'll see in a minute. Brit beni uvenecha. We have a covenant. Ben avi uven avicha. Between my father and your father. Hine shalachti lecha shochad kesef v'zahav. I'm sending you a bribe. Lech haferad britchad ba'asa melech Yisrael v'yaleh me'alai. Do me a favor. Here's the bribe. Would you break your covenant with the northern kingdom so that they will leave me alone? Now, this act of Asa is a very strange act. He's turning over all the gold and silver, similar, if you recall, to what happened with the king of the south, to Pharaoh with Shishak from the south. There he attacked. And most likely the money was given to him to tell him to leave him alone. But here, now the king from the south is giving all the money over to the north. And the Medrash in the Seder Olam Rabbah and also the Tosefta says that this was a tragic mistake. This was actually taking place in the 36th year since the split of the monarchy, since Yeravam came to power. Originally, according to the Medrash, the split was only supposed to last for 36 years, and then the two kingdoms were supposed to be reunited again. What's the significance of 36 years? That's the number of years that Shlomo HaMelech had been married to Bat Paro, to the daughter of Pharaoh, which was considered an abomination. We had explained that as being an issue of, hey, this is a political marriage. But nevertheless, if we remember, Shlomo, with his political marriages, ultimately led to major problems. And Bat Paro had a unique standing. If you remember, she had her own palace as well, to such an extent. And so according to the Medrash, the split was only supposed to be 36 years. And if Asa had gone to war against Baasa or continued the war against Baasa, he would have succeeded. He would have conquered the north. Mashiach, we're done. But because Asa now turns to a foreigner to help him out, as a result, Mashiach has not come. He's lost the opportunity to reunify the two kingdoms themselves. And what's interesting, when he turns to him, what does he ask from Ben-Hadad? Almost nothing. He just says, would you do me a favor? Be my friend and stop being his friend. Be my Baal Brit, my covenantal partner, and don't be a covenantal partner with him. However, those words were taken by Ben-Hadad, and probably the way they were actually intended to be taken. Vayishma Ben-Hadad al HaMelech Asa, and he hears, Vayishlach et tzarei hachayalim asher lo al arei Yisrael. So Ben-Hadad now attacks the northern kingdom from the north. He's in Damascus, so he comes down and attacks them. Vayachet Iyun ve'et Dan ve'et Avel beit Ma'acha ve'et kol kinrot al kol eretz Naphtali. And he attacks the entire north. Tribe of Dan is up there, if you recall. We have up there also, if you remember, Kinrot. Kinrot is, Sar in our time. That's the south of the Kinneret. Okay, and all of the Eretz Naphtali. So he attacks the Galilee, and he conquers the Galilee. Vayehi kishmoa ba'asa vayachdal mibnot et harama vayeshu b'tirza. And when he goes ahead, and the king of the north hears what's going on, he leaves his Ramah city, which was in the south, all the absolute south of his kingdom, and he goes north back to Tirza. Now, Tirza in the north, in this case, is apparently a royal city. Interestingly, the Targum Yonatan says no, but Tirza actually is not a place, but rather it's an emotion. By Vitev b'tarat yata, that he went back in fear and quaking, okay, over what was happening from the north. He ran up north because he's being attacked by a major power and he had to get out of there. And right then, Asa calls out to all of the members of the southern kingdom. No one is excluded from this. Ein Naki means, and the Chazal understand this, that he even took Chasanim from the Sheva Brachas, he even took Talmidei Chachamim from the Batei Medrash. They were not happy with this action. And what did they do? They took all of the stones and the wood that had been used to build the fort or the wall in Ramah, and instead they transported them and they built another fortress. Not in the north, not at the southern end of the north, but at the northern end of the south. The Yeter kol divrei Asa v'chol gvurotav v'chol asher asa, and all the rest of the things that Asa did, and Harim asher bana, and the cities which he built. Halo hemak tuvim al sifrei divrei yamim lamalchei Yudah. You'll find them in those chronicles. Rak le'etzik nato chalat raklav. Only at the end of his life was he taken ill in his legs. This, according to Chazal, was the punishment for having taken out the people who sit in the Beit Midrash and the Chatanim who should have been staying at their home. Vayishkav Asa im avutav, and Asa died. He lay with his fathers. Vayikaver im avutav, he was buried in the ancestral homes. Be'ir David aviv v'imloch Yehoshaphat beno tachtav, and Yehoshaphat is now going to be the king. Now, we're switching sides. And this is what we constantly do in Melachim. So we had now the south, now let's deal with the north. Because we also knew, by the way, the north, there was a king introduced. We hadn't even heard about Baasa. Yeah.
So this is a really big deal. Asa thinks that he's preventing whatever's going to happen. And because of that, you're saying that Mashiach didn't come. Yeah. So how come, that's big.
Well, that's in Chazal, first of all. Let's understand, there's a number of occasions when we say Mashiach didn't come. We say Mashiach didn't come, one of the explanations Mashiach didn't come when Moshe Rabbeinu didn't get into the land of Israel. Okay? There's a beautiful piece from Rav Soloveitchik where he says, V'et Chanan el Hashem beit Ahile, more at the beginning of V'et Chanan, where Moshe Rabbeinu says that I prayed if it had said, V'nitchanan, that if we had prayed, we would have been forgiven. The Soloveitchik explains that's why Moshe Rabbeinu blames the Jews that he wasn't able to go into Eretz Yisrael. It wasn't because he's blaming the Jews like we had in this week's parsha that he hit them, which some say he got lost, but ultimately he lost his temper, according to the Pshat. We're going to have a lot of different explanations of what happened in the sin when he hit the rock. But he blames the Jews, but he did it. So the Rav talks about the fact that he blames the Jews that they didn't also pray for him to get into Eretz Yisrael. It was a lonely prayer, just Moshe Rabbeinu by himself. Had he gone into Eretz Yisrael, we said it would have been the Tkufat Mashiach. Chizkiyahu HaMelech, we talk about being the time of Mashiach as well. So there is a number of moments in Jewish history where they were lost opportunities. And the way Chazal described them is that Mashiach would have been, and I know I'm being recorded on this, but I also would want to believe that when we say Mashiach would have come, it's another way of us understanding that all of Jewish history would have been different. This was a major turning point, and we missed an opportunity. Yeah, Yafa.
Yeah, from the way you're explaining it, how I'm understanding it is, and also based on the Divrei Hayamim that you brought about Aviyam, Aviyah, however he's called in the different texts, Asa needed to mount a defensive defense battle against Basha, who was mounting an attack against him. And so what Asa does is he looks for physical help from a northern kingdom that's not nothing to do with Am Yisrael. He's not relying on his own army. In contrast to his father, right? His Aviyam was his father, Asa's father.
Yeah.
Okay, so Aviyam had a small army against Yeravam's huge army, double the size, and he dove into Hashem, and the whole battle was won by a half-size army because Hashem stepped in. To me, that's what bespeaks the wrongness of Asa, who did everything according to Hashem. And the only thing he didn't take away was the Bamot. So everything was great, going great. He could have been the Mashiach. That's why I'm kind of making that up. But he could have, because he was doing everything. His heart was Shalem and Hashem, like David. I'm not sure if it said that text. I'm not sure about that. But so that means if it was 36 years, that there was a destiny, it was destiny for Mashiach to come if he had been submissive to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and not to looking for help from a physical other king.
No, I think that's the statement. The statement is he should have turned to God. He didn't. He missed.
And that was his error, right?
Yes, it was a terrible error. It was a terrible error that he had. We now go to the north. Yeah, we now go to the north. V'nadav ben Yeravam malach al Yisrael b'shnat shtayim la'asa melech Yehuda. Nadav shows up during Asa's reign, the second year. Vayimloch al Yisrael shnatayim. He only rules for 2 years. Vayas hara b'nei Hashem vayelech b'derech aviv. And he continues in the evil ways of the Yeravam family. Uv'chatato asher echti et Yisrael. And with the sin, not just to sin personally, but to cause others to sin. And so now there is a coup. And the coup is being done by Basa. Okay? And he, Basha, I keep on calling Basa. Basha. Ben Achiyah levet Yisachar, v'yakeu Basha, v'gibton asher leplishtim. And he conquered him in the city of Gibton. V'nadav v'chol Yisrael tzarim al Gibton. Vayamitehu ba'asha b'shnat shalosh la'asa melech Yudah. And in the 3rd year of Asa's reign, Basha takes over. Vayimloch tachtav. Vayhi kemalcho hikat kol beit Yeravam. And now to fulfill the prophecy that had happened, that Yeravam's house was going to be totally destroyed, if you remember the Navi telling him, Lo hishir kol neshama li'Yeravam ad yishmido kidvar Hashem asher diver b'yad avdo achia shilvi. exactly what had been said before in Perek, Yudalid, Pasuk, Vav, completely wiped out the house. Al Chatod Yeravam Asher Chatav Asher Hechti et Yisrael, over the sins of the Chet and the causing others to sin, B'ka'aso Asher Hechis et Hashem Elokei Yisrael, and the anger that he caused to God. V'yetu divrei Nadav v'chol asher asa Elohim ketuvim al sefer divrei yamim l'malchei Yisrael, and now go back to the Chronicles. U'milchama hayta ben ba'asa u'ben ba'asham melech Yisrael kol yimeiam, and there was this constant battle back and forth. B'shnat shalosh la'asa melech Yehuda malach ba'asha ben Achial kol Yisrael b'tirtza esrim v'arba shanim. And Baasha is going to rule for 24 years. Vayas hara be'enei Hashem, vayelech b'derech Yeravam u'v'chatat'o asher hechti et Yisrael. And even though he's not a descendant, he continues to be the spiritual heir, in the negative, of what Yeravam had been. Now, all of this Baasha did not because he wanted to correct the evils, but he wanted the power. And so the evil continued in its place, and we continue again with this terrible situation. It is good but not great in the south. It is terrible in the north, and there's a conflict going between the north and the south. And with that, we're going to end today's shiur, and tomorrow we're going to pick it up again. And I want to thank once again Leah and Alan Cohn for having sponsored today's shiur as we began, in memory of her father, for his yortzeit. His neshama should have an aliyah, and everyone should have a wonderful Shavua Tov, a wonderful good week. Thank you very much.